All right. Welcome, everyone, to Ontario Region's first in a series of workshops on the magic of sponsorship. I'm Sue. I'm a grateful member of Naranon and the present chair of the Ontario Regions. Members started reaching out because they were finding it difficult to find sponsors. I brought this forward to one of our regional meetings, and we had great discussions of how we could help people find sponsors and the need for a workshop encouraging members to become sponsors and encouraging members to seek out someone as their sponsor. I want to thank the members of the ad hoc committee that stepped up to help put this together, the speakers who volunteered to share their experience, strength, and hope, and the Rocky Mountain region for their support, knowledge, and guidance in this event. This event is being audio recorded and copies will be made available to those unable to attend. I will ask that you keep your microphone muted except during question periods. Let us open the meeting with the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. All right, we're going to start off with a reading. Janice will start with a small reading from Questions on Sponsorship.
I'm going to read from the section titled The Benefits of Having a Sponsor from page 11. My sponsor is not only someone who leads me through the steps, but she is also my friend. Sometimes she is my spiritual guide. Sometimes she is my sister in recovery. And sometimes she is the one who tells me the truth when I least want to hear it. She knows me better than I know myself. She can take one look at my face and know immediately when I am struggling. She says hard things that I do not want to hear, but I know I need to.
I think people need to be reminded to put, oh, you got that. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
She loves me so much that she will not let me hide for too long in my fantasy world, pretending everything is great when it is not. She brings me back to reality and helps me turn toward my higher power for guidance. I call her when I am having a rough time with something, and I call her when I am having the greatest day of my life. She has taught me how to care for others in a healthy way and how to trust again. She is someone with whom I am very comfortable. I can tell her my deepest, darkest secrets without being judged. She guides me through my self-discoveries, which lead me to new truths. Having a sponsor is the greatest thing I have done for myself since coming into the rooms of Naranon. I found someone who had what I wanted, and now with her help, I am on my way to a better life, a serene life, one day at a time.
Thank you, Janice. Everybody just remember to keep your mic muted, please, especially when you just come into the room. Next, we're going to discuss what is a sponsor. So myself and my sponsee, Lori, are going to talk on this subject. And after we're both finished speaking, we'll take questions from the floor. And I'll go first. We often hear about people talking about Nara buddies. What is a Nara buddy? Pre-COVID, when it was all in-person meetings, at the end of your first meeting, they'd hand you a telephone list with people you could call if you needed to talk in between meetings. You quickly noted people that were in the room that night, so you could put a face to a person you'd call. With the start of the Zoom meeting, somehow the name NaraBuddy came about. Good name. Thanks to whoever thought of it. These buddies would help you through a crisis, listen to you, kind of put out all the fires that were erupting around all of us newcomers in crisis. So I'm going to read from Questions on Sponsorship. What is a sponsor? A sponsor is a member of Naranon with whom you can share intimate thoughts and feelings about how you've been affected by a loved one's drug addiction. A sponsor will guide you through the 12 steps and 12 traditions so that you can apply them to your daily life. A sponsor can guide you by making suggestions and by sharing their experiences. You do not have an obligation to follow a sponsor's suggestion, but there is an old saying, if you want what I have, do what I do. The booklet also gives guidelines as to who can be a sponsor. And they are a sponsor, may be someone who has a sponsor, works the 12 steps of Nar-Anon, attends Nar-Anon meetings regularly, and shares their experience, strength, and hope, shares a similar situation, examples, the parent, the sibling, the husband, wife, etc., of a addicted person, is active in service, is of the same gender, and you feel comfortable sharing with. Myself, I think the most important things are they're a member of Nar-Anon who attends meetings regularly and shares their experience, strength, and hope. They work or are working the 12 steps, are active in Nar-Anon service, sharing and sharing at meetings, and most importantly, is someone that you feel comfortable sharing with. How do I know I am ready to be a sponsor? So in the book, The Magic of Sponsorship, it says, I've heard members say that even after they have finished working the steps, they could never be a sponsor. Then someone asks them and they say, yes, they didn't realize they could. Sometimes we don't know we are prepared to be a sponsor until we're asked. A relationship flourishes with another member and it becomes an easy transition from a friend to a sponsor. How we sponsor depends on the sponsee and their current circumstances. Sometimes it's a new member who's in chaos. I know I was. Sometimes it's a seasoned member who has never studied the steps. Some sponsees do not like to write. Some sponsees are timid. Some don't like to share. Some need more time than others. Some have trouble with the concept of a higher power. I personally think our higher power leads us. And we may not know until someone asks you, and you have to sit and think about it. Am I ready? Most likely, if someone asks you to be their sponsor, you, in fact, are ready. You have made an impression on them already. When I was a little younger in the program, I used to think when there was a new member in the group, oh, I would be a great sponsor for them. But you know what? That's my control and my need to save everyone slipping out. And I need to tuck that back in and stay in my own lane. It's up to the sponsee to pick who they feel comfortable sharing with. As a more seasoned member, they may feel intimidated if I ask them to be my sponsee, to say no to me. Sponsorship should never be intimidating. So what is a sponsee? A sponsee is a member of Nar-Anon who is committed to attending meetings regularly and work the 12 steps. How long that takes you to do to actually make that commitment that you want to go further into studying the program is totally up to you. Usually it's a newer member of the group. There does need to be that conversation between the sponsee and sponsor. Figure out what your expectations are of me. How will we do this? The two people then agree to meet outside of the regular Nar-Anon meetings, and that could be in person or via Zoom or telephone, whatever. And how often they do this is totally up to them. When I'm sponsoring someone, I do like to use the Nar-Anon 36 12-step book. We work through it together. Yes, I redo the steps every time. When I look at my original answers, I realize how much I've grown. I like to spend a bit of time at the beginning of each meeting to catch up and see how each other are doing. Your sponsor is also someone you can call in between meetings. They know your story and your struggles, so you can just call, no explaining, just need to speak. Your sponsor is a guide in working the 12 steps and the 12 traditions. They help you by sharing their experience, strength, and hope. And also from the questions on sponsorship, becoming a sponsor. One of the most rewarding aspects of Nar-Anon 12-step work is the experience of being a sponsor. Many of us hesitated when we were first asked to be a sponsor because of our fear that we might not do it right. Fortunately, we learned that we could ask our higher power for the courage to take the action in spite of our fear. We came to realize that it's not our job of a sponsor to be perfect. We can only do our best and accept that all outcomes are in the hands of our higher power. Becoming a sponsor is a great way to deepen our understanding of the 12 steps. Sponsorship offers a personal, one-on-one relationship in working the steps. Your anonymity will be respected, for it is only with anonymity that we gain mutual trust. I'm going to share what we say in my home meeting when we talk about sponsorship. If there's new members there, we expand on what a sponsor is. But if it's just us old folks there, we say sponsorship is a gift of the program. Two friends working the program together. Get one, use one, and be one. Thank you for letting me share. Now, Lori's going to share her experience, strength, and hope by being a sponsee. Thank you.
Thanks, Sue. And Sue is my sponsor, of course. And my name is Lori, and I'm a proud member of Nar-Anon since March 31st, 2023, almost a year and a half ago. My qualifier is my youngest son, who's 34, and I'm here today to talk to you about being a sponsee and kind of the process that led up to, getting the courage to ask Sue to be my sponsor. And I never thought I would ever say that it's been a blessing that I've had to deal with this horrible disease of drug addiction. And I pray every day for my son to choose recovery and get better. But for me, because of this program and going through the 12 steps, I'm more humble, more accepting, I'm stronger, less judgmental, more honest, and way less controlling. My self-esteem has helped and has improved, and to be able to do this. And I no longer live in fear and constant anxiety. So after 13 years of enabling and rescuing my son, I hit bottom. It took a long time. I got down on my hands and knees and prayed for help. I was newly retired, 62 years old, and should have been in a happy and settled life at this stage. Instead, I was a mess. My second marriage of 15 years was on the brink of divorce, and I had lied to him and spent thousands of dollars trying to fix my son. I thought I could fix him. My son was at this point homeless and living in a shelter, which he still is. And despite all I had given him, all my paying rent, cell phones, DUIs, fines, groceries, what happens. I just contributed to his progression of his disease. And I was thinking, how can this happen to me? Like, I thought I was a good person. Why am I being punished? Well, thankfully, I had a connection with my higher power already, who for me is God. Although I thought I was close to him and, thought I had it all figured out, but apparently not. And finally, I was guided to Nar-Anon. So I attended meetings online for about 6 months, and I was hardcore. I was like sometimes twice a day. And that's one of the gifts of being online is I could go to an Ontario meeting in the evening, and I go to a Rocky Mountain meeting in the afternoon. And then I guess the first meeting I saw was a speaker meeting, they're amazing. And it was a mom and her 2 addict sons. And I thought, wow, talk about profound. I knew I was home and no longer alone. I knew it was God guiding me and answering my prayer for help. I needed help. I was sick too. God then guided me to Westover, a 6-day retreat for codependency. And then I was, different. I went back to church. I started reading the Bible, and I started to live by truth, which I had never had. I was always living a lie. And in the meantime, I started thinking about the 12 steps of Nar-Anon. So I did a step class online. I think it was through the Rocky Mountain group. And that was amazing, an introduction. And then God said to me, get a sponsor and do the 12 steps. So I had settled into a family home group, New Beginnings, led by Sue. And I had also watched her testimony at a speaker meeting. And I felt connected to her. We were about the same age. Her daughter and my son were the same age, and her story touched me deeply. I was a little nervous to ask her, but I got the courage and sent a message, and she said yes. So here we are. So we met weekly for an hour and started doing the 12 steps in the Nar-Anon 360 workbook. So at the start of each meeting, I would have a chance to talk about any questions or concerns that went on during the week, either with my son or really anything. and I felt so comfortable with her and able to, we shared a lot, and it was amazing. So we would go through the workbook, the questions that I had done as homework each week. And I was very committed. I wanted to, I took the time and did it. And Sue also shared her answers, and we would discuss each one. So some weeks we'd go through a lot of questions, some we'd only get through a couple. But she was always so kind and gentle with her approach, and I never felt judged or intimidated. Sue was there for me if I needed to talk to her or message her in between these meetings. And it was such a comfort just knowing someone was there. It was like having a best friend who, like, I guess more than a NARD buddy, but you have best friends, but they just don't get it, what we're going through. So it's having a best friend who understands about addiction. So before doing the 12 steps, I kind of wondered what the big deal was about them. I thought, I'm not an addict. I was fine. I didn't need to do the 12 steps, but I discovered a lot through it, going about myself, doing the 12 steps, but with a witness, with a sponsor. So I learned I wasn't so perfect. I was controlling, I was lying, I was in denial, and totally addicted and codependent with my son and my husband. I've done some things I'm not so proud of in the past, but together with her, I was able to face my fears instead of putting my head in the sand and ignoring or not facing up to them. I learned acceptance and humility, and the hardest was to forgive myself. I seem to forgive others easily, including my son, but I realized that I actually had a lot of buried or hidden anger in the form of resentment, guilt, and judgment. So thanks to the grace of God and my sponsor, Sue, by the time we got to step 11, I realized I did have a spiritual awakening. The first 3 steps helped me get closer to my higher power. The next 7 steps helped me find myself. And step 11 changed my life. After years of searching in the new age stuff and feeling lost, I felt some peace, a lot of peace, knowing that God's got this and he has all the answers for my questions. So for me, God's word, scripture helps me. I have my sponsor, Sue, who is always there for me. I have my weekly family home group meetings, my sesh, my little blue book. In accordance with step 12, I'm here today to spread the message of love, joy, and hope you receive by having a sponsor and seriously doing the 12 steps. Thank you, Sue, for being my guide, my teacher, my NAR bunny, and special friend. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I now have hope and faith for my son that someday he will choose recovery, but more for myself, to be happy and at peace with my life and to enjoy each moment, and more than anything, to be grateful. Thanks be to God, to my son, my husband, and to Sue for helping me learn all this. And that's why I'll keep coming back. Thank you all, and God bless you.
Thank you, Lori, for sharing your experience, strength, and hope. So now we can open up the floor to any questions we have on what is a sponsor, if there's any.
I have a quick question.
Mhm.
Does sponsor have more than one sponsee?
That is up to the individual and what they feel they can handle. But yes, I think a sponsor can have more than one sponsee. Everybody has their own time commitments that they have. Louise.
Thank you. I am just starting out as being a sponsor. So thank you for hosting this today. Hoping to get lots of tidbits on that. One of my questions is, I should have 2 sponsees. One has decided to take a break from going to meetings. And speaking to my own sponsor, it was, and I think in your guidelines that you read, Sue, about your sponsee should be in attendance to meetings, but is it all right to just still guide her until she's ready to come back through, she's going through some times and she is getting professional help elsewhere. But, I love this person. She's been with us for a couple, almost 3 years now. There's no harm in keeping this relationship, is there?
I don't think so. It's up to you how you do it. It sounds like she's still committed to work the program, but she just can't attend the meetings. So there are no hard and fast rules about what a sponsor is and who's a sponsee. They're all guidelines, as the whole program is. I have found personally, when my sponsees stop coming to meetings, they tend to stop contacting me as well. And we can't save everybody, right? You have to learn that.
Right. Well, right now we're still in contact, which is
Yeah.
good. So there's in the guidelines, there's nothing that says she has to be currently in a meeting
No,
attending.
No.
Okay, thank you.
everything's
Thank-
up to the individuals. Unless
Awesome.
anybody has any other comments about that? No?
I would agree that
Mhm.
it's up to the individual, and if they're still showing interest, that I would still keep in touch with them, and when they're ready, they will get back in contact and say they're ready to
Right.
continue.
Okay, well, thank you. And I know she still has in the back of her mind, because she always asks about the other members and so on. So we're still part of her life, but it's, I just wasn't too sure, because I did read somewhere else too, I think, about they should be in attendance in our meetings. And okay, thank you.
Thanks, Louise. Julia?
Thank you, Sue, for your shares. Thank you for this workshop. I have a question on step 10. And I'm just interested in how you work on step 10. Was it a daily base inventory or something? If you can share your.
Step 10. Continue to take personal inventory. And when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. How I personally do it, I kind of take an inventory of my day and, before I go to bed at night. And if something I've done has made me feel uncomfortable, like how I treated a person, or maybe I was too grumpy or something with someone, I kind of make my amend and I try to do better the next day. It also reminds me that I need to again maybe do a fourth step, go back there and do my fourth step over. But to me, step 10 is just kind of taking a look at my actions for that day and making sure I'm okay with how I acted. Is that what you're asking?
Thank you.
Okay. Now we have a question in the chat from Lisa B. How do you change sponsors? So yeah, you might find a sponsor and then it's not working out. What do you do?
I have an answer to that one. I think you and your sponsor, if you know it's not working out, if you in your heart it's not working out, your sponsor probably knows it's not working out as well. So if you mention it to them that you think you've probably reached a point where it's time to move on, your sponsor will probably react favorably to that, and you'll part ways. And I don't think it will be a big issue. Very often you will work with more than one sponsor. So I think probably if you mention it to your sponsor, it won't be a surprise. That if you feel it, your sponsor is probably feeling it as well.
Thanks, Janice. I agree with that. And I think sometimes two people may have asked a sponsor who they've kind of got on a pedestal, and then they're afraid to bother them. And we're not on a pedestal, definitely. Or maybe, and we all avoid confrontation. I know I certainly do, but I think we just have to, put on our big boy pants and have that conversation and say, this isn't working out. I think I need to find a new sponsor. Or you need to either use me as your sponsor or find a new sponsor that you feel more comfortable with. So it's just about honesty, I think. And nobody's feelings should get hurt if you're working your program. Emily.
Hey everyone. Thanks for letting this get set up. I'm very excited as I'm so new to the program and have been asking about sponsorship. I was curious, and I apologize if this was already asked, but if there's any recommendations for should your sponsor be in your home group? I have not committed to a home group yet. I think I was kind of trying to feel them all out first, as well as the fact of, I know there's some in-person meetings around me. Is there more value to having somebody in my area to be a sponsor, or I don't know if there's any guidance on whether that matters or not, or if it's just that they're willing and I'm willing and we work out. So that would be my question. Thank you.
No,
Anna?
it doesn't matter where your sponsor is at all. It doesn't matter at all whether they're in your home group or in a group that's in another country or down the road, another state, another province. It doesn't matter at all where your sponsor is. If you feel a connection to someone in a meeting that you're on in Zoom and that person doesn't live near you, it doesn't matter. You can have a sponsor anywhere. That's one of the silver linings of COVID.
And you'll hear a little bit more about that when my sponsee and I speak.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions, or shall we move on to our next section?
I have a question.
Yes.
So I'm finding that my name's Bev, and I'm finding that there aren't very many men coming out to the meetings. And so, and maybe when there are a couple of men at the meeting, neither of them have done step work and, so I'm just imagining that many of us women may have male sponsees as well. And just maybe might be good to hear from the men how difficult that is, that there's not very many men coming to the meetings, and it's really hard to, be thoroughly open and be able to do these steps, with the opposite sex. It's just,
Hi,
it's
Lisa.
hard. It is hard enough as it is.
Yeah.
But yeah.
If I can just respond to that, thanks so much, Bev, because I know when my son started working the program, he always told me about how important it was when he got a sponsor, they had to be the same gender. And I think in recovery, that seemed to be a lot easier for him. There was a lot more men who were working the program, and it was easier. I think, and I think it started because of the fact that people would misinterpret the friendship, or that it, there could be not taken advantage, but you're at a vulnerable time. When you're in recovery, they certainly talk about not getting into a relationship for a full year into your recovery. So when we're in a vulnerable state, yeah, but when we talk about genders, I think, that's a political hot button. And I think it's how people identify and what you're comfortable with. I don't see any issue working it shouldn't matter what a person's gender, as long as we're aware and it's not vulnerable and taking advantage. That's my 2 cents.
Absolutely, Lisa. I think that guideline came from the AA and NA guidelines about using the same gender, and that was to avoid romantic kind of situations that could happen. I don't think it's quite the same for us in our recovery. Maybe it is. But yeah, gender is a big thing now. Like, you know, it's how you identify. So, Robert, do you have, as one of the guys in the group here, do you have any insight on that?
When meetings were all in person, I was fortunate to find men to be my sponsor. Currently, when all the meetings are virtual, I have a woman as a sponsor. But it's changed a lot because it's virtual. You know, I'm never gonna go have dinner with her, anything like that. I did have one good friend who had a woman as a sponsor. His wife checked his cell phone, found the text messages between them, and said either he dropped out of Nar-Anon or she was filing a divorce the next day. She didn't care what the relationship was. So that's is a concern to be cautious about, is the perception, not the reality, just the perception.
Thanks, Robert. Did you have a question too, or no? No? Okay. All right. Lucy put a question in the chat. Is there training available to become a sponsor? Well, this is what we're doing here now, is we're trying to help people feel confident in becoming a sponsor and encourage people to ask people to be their sponsor. All right, so now we'll go on to our next topic, which is the benefits of sponsorship. And we will have Lisa and Helena.
Helena.
I tried to spell it out and
I warned her, Helena, last
Helena.
night. I said, you
Helena.
gotta say her name right.
I know,
Uh,
it's
That's
the
okay.
Canadian way to say it, sorry.
That's right.
So they're going to share their experience, strength, and hope on the benefits of sponsorship.
Thank you so much. And Helena, if you're all right, I'll go ahead and go first. Okay, thanks. Thanks so much for so much information so far. I didn't quite know what to expect today, so I'm pleasantly surprised, and I think it's a great opportunity. So Sue, I had the same line written in my notes: sponsors, get one, use one, and be one. One thing that I found challenging when I first came into the groups, which was about 3.5 years ago, was, I came in and I was shocked when I learned that there was going to be no crosstalk. So I was going to, bare my soul to everybody in the meeting, but nobody was going to validate anything that I said. I poured my heart out, and all I got was, thanks for coming, keep coming back. And I thought, well, this is crazy. How is this going to work? Now I certainly respect that, and I can see the benefits of not having crosstalk. Sponsorship is a way of getting crosstalk. It's a way of being able to speak to each other. So that's just one of the benefits that I found. There's many. My first sponsor is someone that I met when I first came into the groups. I actually started working with her just about 2 months into the program. And we worked for about 10 months, and I decided that it wasn't working out. So I think this was a question that came up. How do you...
It wasn't the right ball forward if you're going to pass it.
Oh, someone...
Into it.
There, great. So I was in a situation where I thought, oh my God, how am I going to get out of this? It wasn't working. I was beginning to sort of resent meetings that we had scheduled, I was resenting having to do the work. So basically, and maybe I cheated a little bit because I said to the person, I think I need to take a break from working the steps. I didn't point fingers. I didn't feel it was necessary for me to say, this is not working with you. So I just said, I need to take a break. And we left it at that. And like that was already said, it was known that, she obviously knew that it wasn't working. So that was okay. And I have a lot of respect for the fact that she accepted that and then didn't hound me. And are you working your steps? And when are we going to meet again? I was grateful that she didn't. So I respected the fact that her commitment to the program. It's hard to ask someone to be a sponsor. You take a chance, you ask. I've had people ask me and I've had to say no, just because I don't have the time. It's not that I wouldn't like to work with every single person that comes into the program, but there's just not enough hours in the day. It is certainly a lot more difficult to end a relationship, but it can be done. 6 months later, I found another sponsor, finished working my steps, and now we are sort of co-sponsors for each other. We both work the steps, so now it's just, we don't have scheduled meetings, we become friends, and in fact, she's local. So I'm in Ontario, and my sponsor is also in Ontario. We both know that we can speak to each other at any time. If there's something happening in our lives, all we have to do is pick up the phone. I was so excited the first time someone asked me to be their sponsor. It really just validated the fact that this program was working. I had people outside the program that were saying to me, what are you doing? That's different. You look different. You act different. What is it? But to have somebody in the program say, will you help me on a one-to-one? I just was quite flattered. So my first sponsee is actually from North Carolina. And we've got a lot of things in common, but what we don't have in common is the same type, if you will, of qualifier. Our relationships with our qualifiers are totally different. Our personalities are quite similar. Our age is very different. She's 30 years younger than I am. We do meet on a regular basis. And one of the things that we did find out after, when we interviewed each other basically the first time we spoke, and we found that we're in the same career or very similar. So that I thought was interesting because we don't talk about that in the meeting. I don't announce what my career is, but there was some connection, maybe perhaps a language that I used that she felt comfortable. And as I said, she's from North Carolina. We've been working together for about 1.5 years. And just a couple of months ago, I got to meet her in person because I was driving to Florida. So I got to stop in North Carolina, and that was awesome. And holy smoke, she is so tall. I was really surprised. She's almost 6 feet tall. And I never would have known that. The other really interesting thing, so now we've got the same career. She's a hell of a lot taller than I am, but we have a mole in the same place, right in the middle of our chin that we didn't realize. Kind of silly, but I noticed these things. Sorry, I'm just looking at my notes here. So we still meet on a regular basis, and it's a long process. There's no timelines in how long it takes to work the steps, and that's a benefit as well. We don't say, okay, 12 steps, 12 months, we got to get it done. We let it flow. Sometimes we don't even talk about the steps at all. Typically, we go through the Nar-Anon 36, page by page, word for word, but some days we just don't even open the book. My second sponsee is here today and tonight in her case. Helena is in the UK. So when you ask questions, do you have to be in the same country, the same group? No, not at all. And I'll let Helena talk about how we met. But we don't, with my sponsees, we don't, I have one sponsee that attends one of the groups that I go to. Otherwise, Helena and I don't attend the same groups. And my sponsee from North Carolina, we also don't attend the same groups. And we talk about all kinds of different things. One thing that is very helpful for me and a benefit, every time I work the steps, I'm working them for myself as well. So I've been through them. I've answered all my questions in the NAR 36, but each time I go through the questions, my answer might be different. And like Sue said, you look back to where you were when you answered those questions, and today it might be totally different. We can say anything to each other, and I hope my sponsees know that they can say absolutely anything to me, totally judgment free, even more intimate often, I think, than when we're in the group. So you really get that bond. And even Helena one time spoke to me about, before I was going on my 5-week trip, and she spoke to me about my expectations and what I was doing, which was so helpful to me and really changed my attitude about something. And it really is a two-way street. So even though I'm the sponsor, she's the sponsee, we're really friends working a program together. And that's really important. I do, oh, and one of the great things about working with someone in a totally different time zone, anybody who's been at a meeting with me knows I don't do evenings. So with Helena being sound asleep in the evening, I don't have to worry about talking to her at night. And I'm up early in the morning, so I get to talk to her first thing, and that's fantastic. And I have a third sponsee. So another question that came up, can you have more than one? My third sponsee is a woman in Michigan. Again, she asked me, and it worked out. We're in a similar profession as well, which is awesome. And we meet weekly for an hour, same deal, go through the NAR 36. And she's living a totally different situation than I am. So again, I get to learn about how things are happening in other countries too, which, the healthcare system is totally different. Recovery centers, totally different. And I find that very interesting. Ultimately, the sponsees direct how our relationship is going to be, what they need from it, and I just follow along. Everybody has the opportunity to reach out when they're in crisis, as long as it's not after 8 o'clock at night Eastern. I'm all there. I'm all there, but after 8, that might be a bit of a challenge. Sometimes just being able to speak out loud with somebody one-to-one. You might know exactly what needs to happen, what you need to do, but when you actually put the words out there, it makes us more accountable, and it's great for both of us. I said we're all different nationalities, we live different ages, different relationships with our addicted loved ones. We go to different meetings. We're all in a similar line of work, but we didn't know this, as I said. Different beliefs, different, the way we raise our kids are different. And I've learned so much from them. And the main thing is it validates me. It validates that I'm on the right track with what I'm doing with my sons. Both my sons are in recovery today, but I keep coming back. I keep coming back because this program is about me. It's not about them. And that's what's so awesome. And it also helps me carry the message. Carry the message is, we all do that. Now I spend most of my time, I host one NAR group, and I spend most of my time with sponsors, working with 3 lovely women from around the world. And it was all at their suggestion. They invited me into their lives, and I feel honored and grateful for that. So with that, I will pass the time to Helena. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Brilliant. Yeah, so I discovered Naranon in March 22 when my son was doing his first rehab. Complete revelation. I didn't, it was a whole new world and much, much needed. And I got a huge amount of benefit from it. But about a year later, in February of last year, things were really difficult, and I knew I wanted to kind of up my game in terms of recovery and get a sponsor and, get stuck in even more. And it had been about 4 months prior to that. I'd happened to be in a South Africa meeting that Lisa was leading, and there was just something that spoke to me, the way she spoke. I just felt something that she made a lasting impression on me. So when I came to feeling it was the right time to get a sponsor, I had to set about finding her, which was a little bit challenging. So I started in South Africa because that's where I'd seen her just the once, actually, and in fact was contacted by Elisa in South Africa, which was just a tad awkward, but fine, because not the one I was looking for. And went via a Rocky Mountain event and back to the UK where people might know. And anyway, eventually found her in Ontario. And so that was great. That was great. Because she was just the one person that had really kind of spoken to me who I wanted to work with. So yeah, we did the first kind of meetup, and it's at that point, it's a complete unknown. It was an unknown process to me, the sponsorship thing. Obviously, this is a person I've seen once before. And so yeah, so it's an unknown thing. And I think I actually suggested at that meeting that we meet for a few weeks and then maybe have a review, seeing how we are. I can't quite remember. I'm not sure if that ever happened, because what happened was when we started to work together, it gelled, I think, very, very quickly. At a really, really early meeting, or was first or second, I should think, when we were finding our feet, I was going to have to say that I'd let my son move back in temporarily, thank heavens. But and I was expecting, I was fearful of judgment around that. And of course there wasn't any. And so, and I remember after the meeting just feeling the kind of relief of, okay, we can, I'm not going to be judged here, And yeah, our sessions, we kind of deal with what's current for me. Sometimes that takes the whole session, or sometimes we move on to the step work. But it feels to be a really organic process, where in the kind of mysterious way that these things work, the steps always seem to be reflecting, what's coming up in the step work is exactly what's going on in this. It's an amazing kind of process, really. So we've been together 1 year and 4 months to date, and I'm in a really different place than I was when we started. I've been able to be so much happier than had been possible for many years. I'm freer and I'm stronger. I mean, there's still it's work in progress, but this sort of stuff, it takes time. There's so many levels in the principles of the program and in the steps and in us, and learning where we are and learning what's going on in us, levels at a time in in this process. And I think one of the absolute key thing which makes this a really unique relationship is when difficulty strikes, she understands every heartbeat of it. So everything that's coming at me, she's had come at her and some, to be fair. So the things that cut, the sorts of things that you feel when you're getting all this stuff thrown at you, the shame, all the kind of different things that arise, she also knows. She knows all the feelings that I'm feeling. And that's an amazing thing. I mean, I'm fortunate to have some very close people in my life that I can really share completely with. But there's something absolutely unique about talking to somebody who has completely been there in exactly the same situation, because it's just, you know, and yeah, it's an amazing blessing, really, because it's so hard, isn't it? And of course, she's further down the road than me, so that's great. That's great, and I get the benefit of her experience. There's the understanding of what, you know, these things feel like, but she's also further down the road where things are different as well. So I feel really understood and strengthened, and there's a great a great relief in this sort of sharing. So the step explorations are just so interesting and helpful. And I remember when I first saw the 36, I was like, oh my God, really? But actually going through it bit by bit, just reading and doing the questions, and it's great. You know, I looked at it and thought, I can't do all those questions. I really can't. But doing it bit by bit at my own pace and in the way that I like to explore things, which I do like to explore things quite fully. It's really great. I'm really learning a lot. We've spent ages. I'm still on step 4, and we've spent ages on it, and it's been brilliant, been so helpful. And we have different perspectives on things. We had a really interesting talk about anger on Thursday, you know, and we're coming from quite different sort of perspectives on that. And yeah, it's super interesting. So we laugh quite a lot as well, and there's a clear sense of that we care about each other, you know. So basically, sponsorship is amazing. I think it's really well, for me, it's when recovery really got going. I mean, you know, really got going, because you can go into detail and it's personal and you can explore things. And so exactly where I am at any point in myself and in recovery is being met exactly at that point. And I just think and it's so utterly what I need. You know, the key difficulty in my life is being met by this person. I mean, it's just unbelievable, really. You know, that this is this sort of built-in part of the fellowship. I mean, the fellowship's brilliant, the meetings, everything. But then sponsorship's like a complete, you know, central part of it, where, and it's freely given. I would have been much more comfortable paying for it to begin with, but anyway, I've kind of got the hang of that. And but it's made me appreciate the whole Naranon thing like even more. Oh my God, it's incredible. It's incredible what is offered here, you know. So yeah, so I'm just so grateful. I'm so grateful. I don't actually know what I'd do without it, really. And, you know, along with all that, this lovely relationship has come into my life. You know, that's a really important relationship to me. And, you know, I love her. I'm so grateful to her, and I'm very glad I found it. So that's me.
Wow, I feel like I should be paying her with all those kind words. You know, we haven't met in person, but I hope one day. I called her the other day and said, I just want a trip for two to go to the beach in Spain, and we're going to go, but it didn't happen. But I'm putting it out there, laws of attraction. And anyway, thank you. Thanks for giving us the opportunity to talk about our benefits, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you both, Lisa and Helena. Said it right.
Thank you.
For sharing. Yeah, if a name can be butchered, I'm going to butcher it. Okay. I'm just putting that out there. I used to do that in my job. I'd have to go out into a crowd and call names out, and I got them all wrong. Anyways, any questions now about the benefits of sponsorship? I do have one from that someone sent me a message. How much recovery should you have before you become a sponsor?
That's a good question. I can just respond to that because I questioned that too. I think the way that I was led to believe is the sponsor, it wasn't so much the length of time, but whether or not they'd actually finished the steps. That's the way it was described to me. You know, so I don't know. I'm not sure. So Sue, you might know better than me.
Yeah, I'm not sure. In listening to the Rocky Mountain tapes on sponsorship, they kind of said you just had to be ahead of your sponsee. I don't think there is any hard and fast rules, but I think you have to be in a good place in your recovery to be a sponsor. And that can change too, because we all know that we're on that roller coaster. And but yeah, no, I think it's totally personal. Like I could have been in the program for 5 years and still be on step 1.
I'd also heard that if you get to at least step 4, that was a good point where you could start being a sponsor. But like Lisa said, stay ahead, or maybe Sue, stay ahead and continue working. But we are very short of sponsors.
Mm-hmm.
So don't until you're finished the 12th step.
Yeah.
Right. There's Lisa B had asked a question in the chat. How would we address member hesitation? You know, the one thing about, and this goes to the sponsor being through the program. So part of our recovery, you know, is being able to say no. And, you know, so it's a good test. It's a good test that if you know, you need to be able to set boundaries. We all need to be able to set boundaries. And so we need to be able to assert that. And it's actually empowering. And maybe for some of us, we've never said no before. So it's empowering to say. I have had to turn people down before. And it does just take courage. It takes courage. One of the groups that I used to go to, in order to let people know that they were willing to be a sponsor, in their signature, in their name, on their whatever, see where mine says Lisa, they would just put SP in brackets. So that's an indication that you're willing to be a sponsor. And sometimes that can be a little easier because at least then the person you're asking, you know, is willing to be a sponsor.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Lisa. Anybody else have thoughts on that?
I will talk about that a little bit next.
Okay. Marie, you have a question.
Hello, my name's Marie. I'm sorry I don't have my camera on, but I'm not in a place where I can today. what's also suggested about to be a sponsor, you should have a sponsor. That's one of the first things I was told. Because your sponsor will be the help and that help you make that, help guide you to make that decision if you're ready to sponsor it. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie. I recognize that voice even without your picture. And thank you for coming. Bev.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify Lisa's question for her because she's out in the soccer field, so she can't speak. But the question was more, some people in our group are very hesitant to ask someone to be a sponsor because they feel they're burdening people. And we have gone over in our group that if you ask someone to be your sponsor, they can always say no because, you know, they're too busy or they don't feel ready for it, whatever the question. But never to hesitate to ask someone to be a sponsor. It's up to the sponsor to set the boundaries of whether they can be it or not. And so to just hesitate on that. But there are a few people in our group who are really hesitant. They don't want to burden people. And the thing is, we've been trying to say it's not a burden because if the sponsor accepts sponsorship, they already know that they're also working the steps with you, that you get as much out of it, out of being a sponsor as of, you know, as the sponsee does.
Mhm.
So, yeah, that was what the question was, I think, about.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Bev, for clarifying that. And yeah, I think just, you know, doing events like this and getting people out and talking about it in our group and just emphasizing that as a sponsor, I get as much out of being your sponsor than you get being my sponsee. And it's two people working the program together. And we just, you know, when you find someone you connect with, ask them. And don't feel bad if they have to say no. You don't always know what's going on in their lives. Because we're all living with addiction. And, you know, maybe I'm in a crisis with my addict. Maybe I've just got too many sponsors, but you're not, I'm at a place in my recovery where I can say, no, I can't take you on. And I'm sorry about that. But yeah, it's up to the sponsor to decide if they can do it or not. Don't feel bad about asking anybody. All right, we've got quite a few more questions here. Janet.
Hi, I'm Janet. I'm in Kansas, and I want to thank you, first of all, for having this presentation. This is the second one that I've gone to by this group recently, and I'm just so grateful to be able to attend. I just wanted to share briefly about seeking a sponsor. When I came to Nor-Anon, I wasn't ready to get a sponsor, you know, for a long time. It was probably, I was probably in the program for about 2 years before I even asked my first person. And I asked about 4 people. And that, you know, that the first 3, I kind of turned me, they just said no right away. But I didn't take it personally because I felt like that my higher power was going to guide me to the right person. And just because I was led to ask somebody, that wasn't necessarily the person that I was supposed to work with. So there was a spiritual element there that helped me. I didn't feel rejected or anything like that. I was like, okay, I'm just putting this in my, and then I had someone that said yes, but then something terrible happened in their life and they, you know, it didn't work out for us to work together. And I accepted that too as guidance from my higher power, that it wasn't my time to have a sponsor. But I actually met my sponsor at a similar thing like this. And she's in Washington, I'm in Kansas. So we're country and time zones are different. And but it works out great. And so I'm really grateful to be working with her. And I had gone through a group step study. And I think there's a member here. I attended theirs for a few times, and then I had another one that I went to and finished the 12 steps in that group study. And now that I'm on step 6 with my sponsor, she even told me, she said, since you finished the 12 steps once, if someone asked you to sponsor them, you could do that. So I just wanted to share that. Thank you guys for having this event, and thank you for letting me share. I'm Janet.
Thanks, Janet. Jean.
Hi, also thank you very much for this event. I'm from the upstate New York area, so I'm near the Quebec side of Canada, but I was so happy to find this link. I have 2 quick questions. Janet mentioned group study, and I'm very remote. There's not an in-person meeting, so I have found a meeting in North Carolina, but I'm not at the point where I feel comfortable asking any of them. Actually, I feel more like I've been doing Nar-Anon a little longer than them, so I haven't found somebody that maybe has worked the steps. They're just still enjoying the fellowship. So I'm just wondering if there are group events out there. And then my second question might be a little bit more controversial, but I do have people in my life that are in recovery themselves from addiction problems that have worked the steps and are actively sponsoring a number of people. And I'm just wondering what the thoughts are on seeking out somebody that's actually in recovery from the disease as a sponsor versus somebody from Nar-Anon.
Good question. So for first question too, I think you need to try different groups to find a sponsor, or go to events like this to find a sponsor. You will click with someone, and if it's a younger group that they haven't done the steps, it's hard to find a sponsor in that group. My group, we do step studies as a group. I kind of paused it for the summer, just because people are busy, but we'll probably do that up again in the fall, because we got to enjoy summer while we can before the snow comes, right? But we don't tend to advertise those events, except within the group. But I know there are regions that do step studies, and do that. And you can find those on the event page at WSO usually. Having a sponsor that is working the NA or AA program, I think that is a bit controversial. I think it's a bit frowned upon, just because their recovery is different than ours. Does anybody else have anything to say about that?
Hi, I'm Bev. I'm in both fellowships, so I know that the NA step working guide is beautiful and thorough and a wonderful way to recover, but the people from that fellowship are in that fellowship doing those questions, those things, and they're quite a bit different from the Nar-Anon 12-step beautiful questions for us. So I think that many people that I know can qualify from NA to be in Nar-Anon. I totally have had many people that I know come to Nar-Anon because they love somebody that's an addict, and so you may find some people that have worked both of those things. But I think it's really important that your sponsor has worked those same steps, those same questions. They've lived that same experience of loving an addict and having that struggle. I think that's important.
Thank you. I figured. I just was curious. Thank you so much again for this event.
Oh, you're welcome. And maybe that's something we need to do is advertise our step meetings a little bit more. Maybe take that on as a region and do a step study. So, and I see Robert's put something in the chat for California.
In California, we have 2 weekly step study meetings,
Wow.
Pacific time at noon and Pacific time at 1 p.m. And they're on different parts of the Narnon 36.
Awesome. Thank you
Okay.
for sharing that. And Bev said, from Burling said, they have a step, 3rd Sunday of the month on Zoom. They're currently on step 9. They'll resume in September. And Guelph has one online. I think a lot of our groups are actually doing one. And, you know, if we combined it all, got the volunteers to help, because I think that's been our problem. But, you know, when we put out the call for this workshop, people stepped up and you're all here and it's wonderful. So maybe moving forward, we can get step studies for Ontario region going, because it is very important. Emily, you have your hand up.
Hey, so I was curious as we're talking about these step studies, I did have the chance to join one that I found on the Narnon website. And I was like, oh, if I just work the steps, it'll just be good, you know, whatever I can get it for right now. But when I joined, they were, I think, like on step like 11 or 9. It was something where then it related to like a much lower step that I was on. Like I'm obviously on step 1. So I wasn't really, I just sat to listen and learn, you know, but I wasn't really sure if that was going to benefit me to try to jump in with that. And if not, then how would I know when they're starting over again? Because I would love to join when they're starting over again, but I just, I did join the California one. I think there was one on step 4 and maybe one on 9 or something. Anyways, both of them are not clearly on step 1. So I don't know where I would find that information, or if it would be good for, I'm so sorry, my dog's in the background, or if it would just be good for me just to attend them, even though I'm not there yet. If you have any advice on that, I would love to hear it.
Okay.
Thank
Robert, you have something to say on that?
Yes, it really takes more than one time through the steps to really understand the steps. So you can start wherever and just absorb what you can at that point. 10, 11, and 12, you can work at any time. And then all the groups eventually go back to 1. Just have to ask the group. But you can always join and listen and absorb what you can out of it at that point, and then plan for when you want to start step 1.
Mm-hmm. When my group has done our step studies, it's, you know, we have 6 people, so it's a little more intimate than when you have 40 people here. But I think the real work on the steps comes with your sponsor. It's great to go to step studies too, because you hear different opinions and things like that. But there's not enough time for everyone to share their thoughts on a question in the Narnon 36. I had something else, but also in our group, you know, it's July, it's month 7. So we talk about step 7. So whenever you happen to join Narnon, that's the step kind of thing. And yeah, I forget what I was going to say now. Anyways, whatever. You know, you kind of just work through the steps, but yes, when you're working the steps, you're starting at step 1 with your sponsor, and it's really a deeper connection and a deeper dive into working the steps. And Ken says, step study is very different than working the steps. I agree with that. Okay, and Lou tells us we can integrate a step study registry where we can allow submissions on available step meetings and the step they're on. So Lou is our master of our website. All right, Barb.
Hi, everyone. Really interesting listening to everybody share today. I've been recently asked to be a sponsor, and I'm quite nervous about it. I have no idea what that entails, but that's why I came on today, to get a handle on that. But my experience with my sponsor was didn't involve the steps at all. We didn't. It was basically whenever I, whenever I needed to reach out, I did, and she would respond at some point. So I am doing a step study, but that is totally separate from my sponsor experience. So as a sponsor, excuse me, as a sponsor, is that something that you do? Is work through the steps with your sponsee?
I think every sponsor-sponsee relationship is different. But I think it's a good thing to work the steps. It really deepens your understanding of the program and helps your recovery very much. So working the steps is very, very important.
So highly suggested. Okay, I haven't worked through them all myself, to be like I'm working on it, but
and there are people that I've heard of that work the steps together with their sponsee. It is recommended that you be a couple steps at least ahead of your sponsee. But I highly recommend using the Narnon 36 and doing it page by page. And as long as it takes you, as long as it takes you.
so that's the format then you use for sponsorship, and you just meet at a regular time.
It's totally up to you. My sponsee and we decided, yeah, we would meet, I'm free this day, but sometimes like one of us would be busy that day. So we would make our appointments week by week. We had a normal time that we would meet, but hey, next week I got to go take care of my grandkids. I can't do it. Let's do Thursday instead. So, but I think you should have some regular time set up. It helps.
Good tips. Thank you.
Okay. Bev?
Yeah, I was just going to agree with you, Sue, to say that it's okay to be catching up with each other or to hear about the crisis. But at the same time, getting to the STEP program is important because it brings things out that you wouldn't even know to talk about. And I just find I would just like to send flowers to the people who made that notebook. I think it's the most awesome thing I've ever read. And I can't even imagine putting something together myself, or like as a team. There's just been so much thought put into that. And every one of the little questions will call to you at some point. And then when you go through them again, you get questions that call to you the second time that didn't call to you the first time. So I think in answer to Barb, if you're nervous, especially about being a sponsor, I would say don't be nervous, because if someone's asked you to be a sponsor, they really respect where you're at in your recovery, for number one, and it's a big compliment. Number two, you aren't the be all and end all. So that's really important to always keep in mind, that you're not on a pedestal and you're not an authority. You're just a friend, a coach, a guide. And also that you don't have to worry about what to talk about, because you always have the step book in front of you. So yes, with my sponsees, we do go through whatever's happening at the moment, but then we try to always get back to the steps and at least accomplish one or two questions in that workbook. So it's fantastic.
Yeah. Thank you, Bev. I found too that sometimes, even though I've gone through the steps, hearing someone else's opinion or how they interpret one of the questions makes me think differently. And I'm like, oh, I never thought of it that way. So it is a learning experience for everybody. Ken, you had a question or a comment?
Sure, thank you. Yeah, I wanted to kind of just chip in. You know, there's, I guess every sponsor-sponsee relationship is different, and you kind of have to work that out in the beginning. You know, how often are you going to meet? Sometimes if somebody's really in crisis, you know, and I'm their sponsor, we'll do like 5 minutes every day, you know, at a fixed time. If it's, you know, more kind of working it through, then you can do once a week. And in my experience too, there's almost two kinds of sponsors, and nothing is right and nothing is wrong. But, you know, one is more of like a life coach. I'm going to, you know, work with you when you need it. And the other is more of, you know, kind of a, I don't know, a facilitator, I guess, for working the steps. And in both cases, the sponsor isn't supposed to give advice, but, you know, just kind of try and lead you to the truth, or lead you to a good reading, or lead you to some self-discovery. And the last thing I wanted to say, I started to get asked, you know, could I be a sponsor? And I was going through my steps for the second time. And, you know, I was a little bit anxious or afraid about it. And my sponsor told me two things. He said, you know, number one, they don't know what you don't know. And it was kind of funny. And then he said, you know, you're also closer to it than somebody with, you know, 37 years of experience and that kind of thing. So you might actually be, you know, a little bit more conversant with, you know, the first 3, 4, or 5 steps or whatever than somebody who, you know, who's been in the program for 25 years or something. So that kind of gave me, you know, the confidence to take the big leap and become a sponsor when somebody asked me to. So just wanted to mention those few things. Thank you, guys. And thanks for putting on this workshop. It's wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Okay, let's go on to our last section now. So lastly, Janice is going to share her experience, strength, and hope on finding the right sponsor.
Great. First, I just want to say, listening to Helena and Lori speak, if you were thinking about getting a sponsor and weren't sure, listening to Helena and Lori speak about how they've been working with their sponsors, I'm sure that you're probably thinking about getting a sponsor now, because their experiences were just so riveting to listen to. They were just phenomenal. So how to find the right sponsor? Go to meetings, many meetings, your home group, as well as other groups, and listen to what good recovery sounds like, and write names down. If you're going to many meetings, remember to write down the name of the Nar-Anon family group you're attending, so that you can go back to that same meeting and find that person whose name you've written down, and reach out to members in the chat. Maybe make a list of things you would like in a sponsor. Maybe their age matters to you, maybe their gender, maybe the addicted loved one in their lives. Maybe it matters to you how many years they've had in the program. If you meet in person, maybe it matters to you where they live. Some people in meetings, we talked about this earlier, put their email and/or phone numbers on their video screen, or an asterisk or SP next to their name. Reach out to them. This means they're available to contact for support and/or sponsor someone. If someone seems to be in a better place than you are, who's sharing you can connect with, ask your higher power for guidance, then ask that person to be your sponsor. Have courage to ask someone, even if you think they may say no. We talked about this one earlier as well. They may say no because they have too many sponsees. They may be going through a crisis in their life, or they may just have too much on their plate right now. So don't take it personally. I like the acronym Q-tip, quit taking it personally. And if they say no, then your higher power has someone more appropriate in mind for you. Keep looking. I remember having to say no when someone asked me to be their sponsor because I had too much on my plate at the time and I felt very badly. She understood and she emailed me when she found another sponsor and she let me know how she was doing. And if you work with the Step Study group, you could find somebody there. Some members attend conventions online and in person. And if you attend conventions, you could find someone there. Our Naranon guest speaker events where we have guest speakers from Naranon and NA, you may find someone there. Again, use the chat. If you've heard people say do 90 and 90, it means do 90 meetings in 90 days. How will this help you find a sponsor? You'll get to know people in the fellowship. Listen to others share. This will be a fraction of the time compared to the time we've spent agonizing over our addict. And if you do a meeting a day, the 90 will take care of itself. And it's all about who you connect with, who has what you want, and who you feel you can trust. And it's all about who can help you get out of your own way. We did talk about putting a list together and posting it on our website of who are willing to be sponsors so that those needing one could pick from the list, but you really can't connect with a name on a list. I remember when I asked my sponsor to be my sponsor, we had known each other for a few years through the fellowship before I asked her. And I asked her one day when we were just having a visit at my home, she said yes right away. I should have asked her sooner. I really thought that I didn't need a sponsor. I thought I was okay with the way things were going in my life right then, that I was okay with the way things were being handled. And I was very wrong. My sponsor had been with me for quite a while, unknown to me, just waiting for me to ask. She's closer to me than my family members. I consider her to be my sister. Having a sponsor is the best thing I ever did for my recovery. And that relationship with my sponsor, it is a very intimate relationship. And that is the magic of sponsorship. The first time a member asked me to be their sponsor, it was through an email. It was a woman from the United States. She was from Ohio, and she had been to a few of our meetings. She was very sweet and quiet spoken. She had the same addicted loved one as me. I had never been a sponsor before, and I was a little shocked that I had been asked. I had worked the 12 steps. She said she felt a connection to me and she wanted to work through the 12 steps together. I was flattered, but I was upfront with her and I told her that I had never sponsored anyone before. She said that it didn't matter to her. So we had talked some more and we had met through Zoom and kind of got to know each other a little bit better. And so we decided that we would work together. It was the best decision I had made again for my recovery. I had the opportunity to work the steps again, and I learned so much more about myself as well as about my sponsee. That's the magic of sponsorship. So to recap, go to meetings, listen to members speak. If you connect with someone, reach out and ask. The worst they can say is no, and then you ask someone else. It's the best thing you can do for your recovery.
Thank you, Janice, for that wonderful talk. Do we have any more questions? And we will tell you how to get a copy of the recording shortly.
Hey there, this is Marie. Not a question, just a statement. What came to me as everyone was sharing, and I thank you for this workshop. I was watching TV and there was nothing good on, and I said, let me go to events and see if there's anything going on there. But my statement is, as I was listening to that, sponsees are like my children. And I'm saying it, they're like my children because each child is different and I interact with each child different because of their personality. And I find the same thing with sponsees. I don't do the exact same thing with every one of them. It depends on their needs and what relationship we develop. So can be scary if somebody asks you. But if you think about it, raising children was scary. When you first became a parent, that was scary, but you learned how to do it. Sponsorship is the same. Thanks for letting me share that.
Thanks, Marie. Beth?
I just wondered if we could have Janice's list about how to find a sponsor, because to me that is essentially, it's essential for our group to have that. Could you maybe put it, I don't know how you post it, or post it on our Collabonon? We have a Collabonon website or whatever, but I just think it's excellent. Thank you, Janice, so much. You really pinpointed so many different things, and I think it's important for new members and people who want to be sponsors to have that.
You're welcome. I will make sure that you get the list.
Any other questions, comments? Okay. All right, so I want to thank you all for attending today and hope you take away something good from this workshop. If you have any suggestions for our next workshop, topics we could cover on sponsorship, it will take place in the fall. Date will be announced later, as well as if you'd like a copy of this audio event, please email stepstoserenitylondon@gmail.com. I just want to remind everyone that the literature we use for this workshop, The Magic of Sponsorship and Questions on Sponsorship, as well as some of the pamphlets, are available through Ontario Region if you're in Canada, and WSO if you're from another country. Janice will now do another reading and close the meeting.
I'm going to read from page 11 again out of Questions on Sponsorship from the section titled Thoughts on Being a Sponsor. I anticipate a day soon to come when these new buds on the Narnon tree will blossom and become sponsors. The Narnon family tree will grow again, and I will then be a grand sponsor to their sponsees. It is beyond comprehension how many lives are touched through the singular act of becoming a sponsor. Like a pebble dropped into water, the ripples extend forever. This is the brochure or the booklet, Questions on Sponsorship. And there is another one that goes with it, Magic of Sponsorship. And if you are in Canada, you can get those booklets from us. And if you are from another area, you can get them from the World Service website at narnon.org. And I also put the email in the chat if you would like a recording, a copy of the recording from today. Steps to SerenityLondon@gmail.com, and that's where you can send suggestions for our next workshop. And thank you for joining us today, for spending part of your afternoon with us at our first sponsorship workshop. We are going to have another one in the fall, so please keep your eyes open for that. And with that, I will close out the meeting with the Serenity Prayer. Excuse me, not the Serenity Prayer, the Unity Prayer.
I put my hand in yours.
And together we can do what we could never do alone. No longer is there a sense of hopelessness. No longer must we each depend upon our own unsteady willpower. We are all together now, reaching out our hands for a power and strength greater than our own. And as we join hands, we find love and understanding beyond our wildest dreams.
Thank you.
Coming back.
Yep, keep coming back.
It works if you work it, so work it, you're worth it.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Yes, thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thank you all.